News is nothing more than click farming. And you need only look at how titles on any of your news websites, the article titles are written. They're written to get you to click to get the answer.
Okay, so if structural discipline is eroding in professional communication, it raises a bigger question in my mind. What happens when the institutions shaping information operate under performance incentives instead of clarity incentives? Writing isn't just drifting inside of a vacuum, it's drifting inside of a system. So, for cold topic 2, bridging a little bit, last week we discussed the psychology of mass belief and authority. And that conversation stuck with me, not struck. I guess it can hit me over the head. If belief spreads through repetition and perceived authority, what happens when the institutions that are shaping information begin operating under entertainment incentives? There's a line from the show Lioness that Dan and I recently watched. It captured something interesting. The quote read, "News stopped being news when they started doing it 24 hours a day. It became entertainment." Whether you agree with the statement or not, it raises a serious structural question. When information becomes constant, monetized, and algorithm driven, does journalism remain journalism, or does it inevitably drift into performance? So the discussion becomes, is it even possible to produce continuous news without drifting into commentary?
All right. So, so this is just what we were discussing before the show. So we have a big problem in media, and I'll just speak first in the weather space, in the weather community. We have a big problem right now with people that engage in clickbait, engagement farming. It is a huge problem, and it leads to a credibility issue. And the reason that I am so outspoken about it and that I call it out on my channel and on social media is because of that very reason. It damages the entire space. It damages all of us, the people that try to do things the right way. And this isn't just in the weather space, but I speak about it there because that's my area. So we have people that the engagement farming formula, it works like this. If you're in the weather space, what you do is you have your social media page. You go through the models. You find the scariest and most anomalous looking model that looks the most daunting. Even if it's 384 hours in the future, you crop it out. So you take out, the identifying information and you just slap it up on your page. And then you say something, you'll put a caption on it like, wow, or oh my God, or this could be really bad, or look out, Alabama, or something like that. And then you just sit back and wait for the clicks and the views and the engagement to roll in. Or, you say something like, oh, this, you're always a contrarian. These guys don't know what they're talking about, but I do. And then you post, some ridiculous stuff. And the problem is when you do that, and inevitably a lot of that stuff won't happen because it's model output at 15 days out. And of course, inevitably, most of the time it's not going to happen. What happens is then those people will go and run to guys like me or other people in the business that don't do that. And they'll be like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You always get it wrong. These weather guys, they don't know crap. He said there was going to be a big storm in 2 weeks and it never happened. It was sunny. It was a beautiful day, blah, blah, blah. Or they said it was going to be nice and there was a tornado took my house out. Why didn't they warn us 10 days out? And it's just, this is what happens. And it's media. I mean, in the news business too. Anytime you invite, anytime you have money involved, anytime there's an incentive to get more views and there is a confiscatory ad rates and compensation for it, you are going to invite a group of people, not everybody, but a group of people that are going to come in there and try and game the system as much as possible to get as many views as possible. And that is going to create that race to the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to say, to kind of start off my side of this, that really it's all about the clicks now. News is nothing more than click farming. And you need only look at how titles on any of your news websites, the article titles are written. They're written to get you to click to get the answer to the question that they're posing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's not Trump started a war with Iran. It's, you won't believe what Trump started in the Middle East. And then you've got to click to get to what's really going on. So, stuff like that. It's just, yeah. In the 24-hour news cycle is probably the biggest issue there. There's not enough news for 24 hours. There just isn't. And if you don't believe that, go to YouTube and pull up any mainstream news channel that broadcasts on YouTube. Now CBS does it, Fox does it through their Fox Now, MSNBC used to, I don't know if MS Now, whatever they are called now, does, but BBC does. And basically every hour it just recycles the same stuff over and over. There's not enough news. But
is it that there's not enough news, or they're just focusing on the things that are going to get clicks and ignoring the actual important news?
Well, that's part of it. There's not enough news to get you to focus on things that will get clicks, so you have to sensationalize.
Right. I was going to say, there is enough news to cover 24 hours worth and more. Sure. But is it
not enough good news?
Right. Is it stuff that people
bleeds?
Like, yeah, exactly. If it bleeds, it leads. And again, this is not new. Obviously, the if it bleeds, it leads has been a saying for 60 years. That's been around forever. And having sensational story. I mean, yellow journalism is a concept that started in the late 19th century, or right at the start of the 20th century. And this whole celebrity worship and all this other stuff. I mean, that's been around forever too. So it's not a new thing. And profit making money in and of itself as a news organization, I'm going to hot take. I don't necessarily think that in and of itself is bad to be able to make money, because making money means you can hire more people to go out and cover more stories and have better technology. And that's fine. But it's going to lead, just like I said a minute ago, in the weather community and with anything, when there is a profit motive, there eventually becomes people that want to maximize. They want to be the rational utility maximizer. They want to make sure that they are squeezing every possible nickel out of it and every bit of time and for money spent, return on investment, and everything else that they possibly can. And unfortunately, what happens is, where it should be information first, entertainment second, it becomes entertainment first, information second, because if fewer people are watching, that means lower confiscatory ad rates, and that means less money coming in. So it's, and yeah, there's a credibility issue when everything is, and look, again, it's chicken and the egg, because I know that people want this stuff. They always say, when I was growing up, there was always this, why don't they have more good news? The problem with the good news thing is they have tried it time and time again. And it has been attempted, and they'll go, oh, let's go to Mrs. Zellner, who has a new garden, and they do the fluff stories, and they have relegated fluff stories on TV news to the morning news shows. They don't do it very often anymore on anything else, because that's the demographic that wants that is generally an older demo that doesn't really buy a lot of stuff in the target, 25 to 54. It's going to be the older folks that just want to see Mrs. Zellner's garden, and they want to see the cooking stuff. And that's, Right. The puppy stuff. They want the puppies and the kitties and all that. And that's fine. I mean, but people always go, why don't they do more good news? I'd watch that. But the reality is you wouldn't. And that's why they do this stuff. It's just like in the music business. People used to say, why don't they play more indie artists on the radio? Why don't they play more album cuts? Why don't they play more of this? And you know what? Some stations tried that. And for the most part, there is a few exceptions, but for the most part, guess what happened? The ratings tanked because people want to hear the hits. They want to hear the songs that they know and they can sing along with. And even though ideologues are always like, why don't they do this? Because when they have tried it, it has failed, and it's failed miserably with a few exceptions. So, that's why the news is the way it is, because people have driven it that way. So it's your fault, America. No, but I mean, it's
well, people have driven it that
to
way.
Agree. Yeah,
people have driven it that way, but there's also a market factor there, and I don't know how to solve for X on this one, but money will always drive everything in the end. So businesses figure out that the people enjoy things that bleed. So thus, if it bleeds, it leads. And they enjoy hothead anchors. So I don't care if you're talking about Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson. They enjoy either side of the hate argument.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that going on. But then you have the shareholders. And you have the boards that are beholden to the shareholders. So the shareholders are like, just make money. I don't care how. So you have that profit motive that's driven through the shareholders that make all of these bad things happen. But again, I don't know how you solve for X, because let's say that you decide that, news has to be government controlled. Well, that ain't gonna work.
Oh no.
That's Soviet, so that's no good. You can claim that it needs to be owned privately, but you need only look at like X and everybody throwing a fit because Elon controls that and he's just one guy, so that doesn't work either.
Right.
I don't know how you solve for, other than perhaps it's just the natural life cycle of things.
Well,
of a civilization. It gets to a point and then things break down and then it just needs to reset itself.
The privatization of media and the conglomerate, the big mega conglomerates of media companies, that's certainly another topic for another day, but that has definitely hurt media in general. And that has been, it started back in the 70s. It started, kind of under, Nixon, Ford, Reagan, then Clinton really loosened the regulations, and it just kept going. And that definitely hurt media. But I'll tell you, this is just, it's such a complicated topic, right? This is just one of those things that you're right, Dan. There's no easy solve for X. I'll tell you. So I've applied for over 2,000 jobs in media over the years, since the year like 1999. And some of those were talk radio gigs. And my approach was never, I was never a conservative, nor was I ever like a big time liberal. I was always kind of a centrist, for a while, kind of libertarian-ish, but mostly centrist guy. Independent now. So, and as much as people say they want that kind of a voice on media, they don't. And so, they want somebody that's going to be a bloviating conservative or, a left-leaning liberal. And for the most part, talk radio wants a conservative because that's what drives the engagement more. It actually drives the engagement more than left-leaning stuff. It just does. I mean, people either want someone that they can totally agree with, or they want someone that they can totally disagree with and scream and yell at. And these, that's what they want. They want, and that's talk radio. They don't want a guy that kind of gets on there and is like, well, man, I think it's cool if we legalize marijuana. I don't really have a problem with it, but I can also see how people would have an issue, and so, I think it should be left up to the states. That's not salacious.
Oh, that's
you want someone that goes, drugs are awful. They are destroying everything. Or if you have a problem with drugs, you're the problem because they need to be legalized because people need, and you're just a bloviating conservative ass. You know, they want someone that's going to come on there and be fiery and passionate and just one side or the other, black or white. That's just how it is. They want Sean Hannity or Rachel Maddow. They do not want insert centrist here. You know, we had a talk station in Phoenix way, way back in the day. It's still around, but it is not what it was in 1987. You know, KFYI was this station, and they had, you know, in the morning they had a conservative, then they had a liberal, then an independent, and a libertarian, and they had multiple points of view. And for a while, it was a very successful station. But you know, as the bigger companies came in and they wanted to game the system, and they figured out this is how you do it. You put these guys on, and you just have, you know, we want, you know, Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. We don't want centrist local guy. We don't want that. We don't want independent dude. You know, unless independent dude is going to have, you know, strippers on their show or whatever, then yeah, let's have independent dude. But other than that, unless there's some niche or angle that you can come up with, that's not sensible, rational, reasoned talk was not what they wanted. And the same thing in media. It's whenever there's a headline, it's, you know, U.S. slams Iran. You know, it's like there's always these heavy action words, these big, you know, big adjectives. It has to be, you know,
Sounds
sensationalized.
like a UFC fight.
Yeah. That's a battle I fight over on TCF, trying to walk the line. You know, because you've got to throw in some of those words or the algorithm isn't going to care about you.
Exactly. Israel and the U.S. sodomizing Iran. Like, it's like they gotta,
that one would probably get you limited.
Well, yeah, maybe, but not if it's over there on Fox News or whatever. They'll be like, hey, yeah, let's go for that. Because sensationalism sells, man. And again, people sit here like you and I and say it's wrong or it's what's going on. This is what's happened to journalism. But the problem is we are in the minority. Most people don't really care. Or if they do care, they just don't watch, or, you know, or they don't really notice. They just have it on. It's on at the doctor's office, or it's on in the background, and, you know, whatever. Or, you know, as your parents get older, they just sit there and stare at that all day, and then just and then they call you up and say, did you see? Daniel, did you see what happened? David, what are you doing? You know, inevitably that's what it comes. Mike, I don't believe what's going on here. You know, it's always, you know, and it doesn't matter if it's left or right. You know, Dan, it's just that's what winds up happening. So I don't know, man. Again, there's no easy fix. Just like sidebar, we don't solve anything. I don't think there is an easy solution. I would say a time machine would be necessary to solve this and stop the deregulation of media outlets. That would be my fix to it. But that ship's already sailed, unfortunately.
Yeah, but then that would just undo the other threads in the fabric of time, and we'd be under rule of Super Hitler or something like that.
Michael brought up the unless they're hiring strippers, and it instantly, if there's any Family Guy fans out there, do you guys remember the episode where Brian and Stewie took over the radio station?
Oh yeah.
With the cannon that shot hot dogs.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, or just when Lois and Peter started that cookie store, and it was just kind of going slow, too. And so then Peter brought in all the you know, strippers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Strippers and cookies.
And eventually, in the Family Guy one, eventually toward the end of the arc, Gore Vidal walked in.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I just thought of a conundrum.
Yeah.
You talked about how, like with KFYI here in town, how it changed because there's like this formula that has to happen and all of that. So, and we see this formula repeated like all over the country. It's the same thing everywhere. But it also it creates a monopoly in a different way too. It creates a monopoly in the ability to communicate and break into it, because it's harder now to do like anything, because you have to balance being formulaic but also having an angle
Right.
that makes you unique, and that is just that's a difficult needle to thread right there.
Yeah, and you don't
that's
want to
not
be
helping things either.
too unique to where you turn off the listeners. Now, of course, if we're talking about radio, yeah, again, that ship's also sailed because nobody under 45 listens to the radio anymore. That demo is aging, and it's aging quickly. But yeah, you have to be very careful what niche you go with and how you go with it too, because there's a formula, and you do want to try and have a fresh angle on that formula, but it's a gamble if you try that. Sometimes you just stick with the tried and true fat conservative, or
don't talk about me like that. Screw you, Michael.
Dan, you'd have to put on quite a bit more weight to fit on the some of those shows, I'm afraid.
Well, this is my angle. I'm only slightly fat.
Oh, okay. So well, and then I don't know. Yeah, maybe that'll work, Dan. I don't know. Try out for Fox. Try out for whatever.
Hell no.
News Nation.
Nope. No, we're building our own media company here. Thank you very much. And we're going to stick to that. Which, after this discussion makes me think again whether or not I really want to be building this media company.
Yeah, well, but if you do it differently, maybe so. That's the thing. Like, I mean, eventually there is going to be an audience for a more independent or a more rational, reasoned talk and / media company. Eventually, and I think it's starting to happen already. That's why YouTube, some of these channels do well. Yeah, but it'll become a big audience eventually, as some of the boomers are no longer around.
All right, Beth, we'll evaluate our business choices later.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for watching. In the Blind is a news show for Mike and me, and we'd really love it if you could hit the subscribe button, do a thumbs up, leave a comment. All of those things really help this channel get found by other people, so we'd really appreciate the support. Thanks so much.